Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, welcome to Tuesday's college football, basketball, baseball roundtable sidelines. Rob Browne broadcasting here with you. The next 2 hours, as we are every Monday through Saturday, we talk a lot of college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. We'll bounce into the NFL, NBA, major leagues because these guys they go back and forth. They play in the big leagues. They get there. We follow them in their careers, and we bring on great sports writers, media personalities. We are sports radio show and podcast. That's what we do. That's who we are. You might say, as my wife Audrey said yesterday we were out hiking up on the ridge after the show. She said, we are your safe space away from all the crapola, the politics, and all the negativity out there. Can we talk about sports every day, 6 days a week? With great guests. We are red meat and potatoes content. So we're your safe space from all that other craziness out there in the world. Got a great lineup today. We're going to start off with Jake Wimberly, the afternoon drive, 105.9 down in Jackson, Mississippi. John Hartwell checks in. John's the new AD at ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe, the Warhawks. And he'll check in, give us his take on what's going on over there. And just that stuff that only an athletic director is able to really talk about. We'll be joined top of the second hour, Johnny Ballpark Franks, closing in on the number 14,000th interview. And he's also interviewed more Heisman Trophy winners than anybody that I know of. He's going to be cataloging that into a vault sometime in the next couple of months. He'll tell you about that when he's on with us. And we'll close out segment 4. Mark Hamm, Rocky Top, Tennessee Tailgate report. What's going on up there in Big Orange Country? Vols finished 11-2 in football. Got a pretty good basketball team. Just beat the 10th ranked Texas Longhorns as part of that SEC Big 12 challenge. So, Jake Wimberly, I want to say, got us a nice ice storm up here in the Mid-South. I don't know if y'all are getting any of this great weather down there. In Jackson, it's interesting. It started Monday night. Oh, golly, we got hours, about 6:30 or 7. It started, went all night. It's going to be this afternoon on Tuesday, of course, have it. And then again Wednesday and again Thursday. Off and on, off and on. So great time for people to be homebound. As Harry Carey used to say with Steve Stone, when I watched all the Cubs games, I'd get home after school. Harry Carey here with Steve Stone. Want to say hello to all the shut-ins out there, like the nuns at St. Cecilia's Convent down in Springfield, Illinois. So probably do have a lot of shut-ins today, but wherever they are, they're sinking in sidelines.live and listening. But got to get your takeaway, Jake. What about that SEC Big 12 challenge? Mississippi State beat a TCU team that's pretty good. Tennessee won. That was impressive. I would say those are the two most impressive wins. I think the Big 12 is the best basketball league in America.
Yeah, good morning, Rob. I appreciate you having me in as always. I think you're right. The Big 12 is the best basketball league, at least today. Purdue's likely the best basketball team. They're the best basketball league. But a big win for Tennessee. I like the kind of mid-season break from conference play type of format that the SEC has gotten into with the Big 12, this partnership. And you're right, a big win for Chris Jans and Mississippi State. Chris Jans has brought a ton of energy to Starkville, and they've done a really good job early. They need some shooters. This is not a perfect basketball team. This probably may not even be a tournament team this year, more likely an NIT team or a fringe NCAA team. But they play with a lot of energy. They play with a lot of passion. That's something Mississippi State hasn't done for a number of years. Ben Howland coming in really missed the mark there for Mississippi State. But you look at Chris Jans, what he's done has been a pretty darn good first year coming off the Howland years. And again, like you said, the SEC with a nice showing over the weekend.
Well, I'm reading the excerpts, the beginning of a book by my friend Bo Carter, former SID at Mississippi State. And was there 74 to 86 and still very close to the folks there in Starkville. And I'm telling you, if you're a Mississippi State fan, the first 81 pages that I'm reading in this book, it's just tales of stories of Mississippi State athletics. Man, I mean, it's just incredible reading. And Bo's on with us on Fridays. And that's something I've always noticed about Mississippi State. And it's said in there about what Larry Templeton did, his 20 years there, 87 to 07. He hired a lot of great coaches like Jackie Sherrill for a school its size. And I have to agree with this. There's not a school that's the size of Mississippi State probably in this country that has as competitive a group of 21 teams across the spectrum, men's and women's sports, as the folks in Starkville. You spend time up there, Oxford, all over Mississippi. Basketball, playing in the hump is a very tough place to play. Here's my question. When are they going to build a new arena or do something with it?
Well, I know that over the last several years, they've done some renovations and modifications to the Humphrey Coliseum. As you mentioned, it's a little bit more of an aged, Coliseum. I do not know of any, and that'll be a question that, the new athletics director and administration has to address moving forward is, can they, do they continue to renovate Humphrey Coliseum? I know they've done a great job in doing some upgrades there, new video boards, new ribbon boards, a lot of new stuff there, a lot of new whistles and bells. But that is the one facility that likely needs the biggest of upgrades. But you're right. I mean, Mississippi State has done a really good job over the years. And you go back to talk about Larry Templeton. This is back before the big SEC money really started pumping in from the SEC network and the two divisions and all of this, stuff that we have going on today. Larry Templeton, very interesting guy. Like you said, did a lot of good things, aggravated some alumni, but I mean, which athletics director hasn't, aggravated a portion of the fan base? But you look at Mississippi State from the Larry Templeton years up until today, they have had pockets of big time success. It's hard to believe that, we're almost 25 years since Mississippi State punched the ticket to the Final Four in 1996. This basketball program, when it's up and running, the fan base is extremely engaged. I mean, if you look at what the women's team did just several years ago, making deep runs in the women's tournament, extremely engaged there as well. But, across all aspects, Mississippi State has been extremely competitive more years than not in most sports.
Yeah. And what are you hearing about the athletic director job there? And just, I know Zach Arnett was quickly put in position as the football coach. And before I go to the AD, I need to ask that question, a series of them. What about the staff? Do you like what Zach Arnett did in terms of keeping people and bringing in new people and all? Because, I mean, it was tragic enough, the loss of Mike Leach, but then you have to think about the staff, and there are going to be changes. But again, got a lot of Mississippi State listeners like Stan Jones, my friend from Starkville, Mississippi, that loves to listen and keep up with the Bulldogs. And I think that they've got something. They won 9 games this past year. Do they want to change a whole lot?
Well, I think, look, again, you and I spoke about this before. The circumstances you referenced is unparalleled. I mean, most people don't have to go through something like this, but Zach Arnett, you got to give him a lot of credit. I think he's done a really good job with his staff. And again, there's 2 types of coaches, and we know this. There's the micromanagers, and then there's those that are kind of the CEO oversight guys. It's going to let their coaches coach and really kind of give them a lot of rope to kind of run and gun. And I think Zach Arnett on the surface is the second, not the first. You look at David Turner coming in to, kind of reestablish along that defensive front as a defensive line coach. He's had a couple stints in Starkville, very familiar with the Southeastern Conference. Also, you look at Brad Peterson, a guy that was on Dan Mullen's staff, highly successful Mississippi high school football coach. And now he's back in the fold. He knows this state as good as anybody. Yeah. He'll be working at a very important position there. Chad Bumpus coming back from Utah. He was, one of the best receivers ever to play in the program. He's going to be in that, leading that wide receiver room. So, a lot of guys, Greg Knox is back, guys that are familiar with this program that have had success on staffs inside this program are back, that understand not only the landscape of Mississippi State, but the landscape of the Southeastern Conference. And I think that bodes well for Zach Arnett. It tells you where his mind is to put himself and, to kind of surround himself with people that know a lot about this conference and a lot about the school.
One thing about Mississippi State University I've always noticed is they are so fully invested in the state of Mississippi. They recruit it so hard. They always do well. Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, I think he got 4 kids from Mississippi in the recruiting class. Why is there such a big difference? I'll tell you my theory. It's an agricultural school. That's where their roots are, land grant versus, University of, and I think they just are so deeply rooted they can't think any other way.
It is interesting to see the two philosophies. If you go scour, the recruiting classes for this year, National Signing Day Part 2 is tomorrow. Mississippi State will have more Mississippi guys. And I think it's just a difference in philosophy. Now, to give Lane Kiffin credit in Oxford, the few handful of guys that he has picked up out of the state of Mississippi are probably the best in the state of Mississippi. When you look at Sunterian Perkins out of Raleigh High School, this is a young man that won 3A Mr. Football. And, he is just an absolute man-child of a guy. He's going to come in and play linebacker for Lane Kiffin, but he could play running back probably in the SEC. You look at a guy, a couple wide receivers that come to mind. Aiden Williams out of Ridgeland High School. Mm-hmm. He's a 4-star product right down the road from where I sit today, and he's the number 1 wide receiver in the state of Mississippi. And Lane Kiffin just goes in this past weekend and grabs Lester Miller, the number 2 wide receiver out of Brandon High School. So, it's not the quantity for Kiffin, it's the quality. Whereas for Mississippi State, they've got some really good guys. I just think it's the difference in approach. Kiffin, I think we know this now. If you look at his numbers in recruiting this year and last year, his signing classes are going to be relatively low compared to the normal, the mean. Alabama, Georgia, everybody else in the SEC is going to be 25, 26, 27 tomorrow. Lane Kiffin's going to be 14, 15, 16. But he is going to use that transfer portal to try to leverage what is now, as we talked about, free agency in college football. Yeah. Lane Kiffin from the NFL. I think he's trying to run Oxford and that program more like he is doing. It's just a little different. It's just a difference, the difference in philosophies for sure.
Yeah, it is, because now with the transfer portal, and I really want to see the data. Go back to October 15th of 2018. We're now over 4 years into it. I'll bet you 45%, maybe 50% of the guys who go into the portal just in football don't get picked up. And they don't. And you got to remember that I think people forget this. Wherever you are on scholarship, if you enter the portal, the minute you do that, that school is no longer obligated to keep you on scholarship. Now, they can, but they're not obligated to. So you got to be very careful. And I think it's a new way for guys to say, I quit, or I just don't want to play. But it doesn't really sound like I quit or I got cut or I just wasn't going to get any playing time anyway. So they just go in there and they're in purgatory for eternity, it seems like. Now, I look at the state of Mississippi, top to bottom. Southern Miss was a force for a long time. I mean, we've had Bobby Collins, Jeff Bowers, a lot of success. What has hurt Southern Miss's brand the most? South Alabama, Troy, all these other programs that are around them. They've always had 25, 30% of their roster from Alabama, but the resurgence, in building UAB's program. Can you put your finger on it, or did I just list it all?
I think you touched a lot of it. I think if you go back and look at Southern Miss back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, Southern Miss was just as competitive, as Mississippi State and Ole Miss was. However, this back when Southern Miss, and I know you remember this, and a lot of your listeners and followers will know this, the older ones, they were back in the old Metro Conference. And, basketball, they were independent in football. But, things changed over time. And, Southern Miss used to have a say in anyone, anywhere, anytime. And they prided themselves on being able to scour not only the state of Mississippi, but scour the southeastern footprint and find guys under every rock and develop them. But I think what has happened over time with Southern Miss, and look, you got to give credit to Will Hall. He's done an amazing job in a short amount of time getting that program turned back around. Yeah. Really competitive program. We forget real quickly, they were one of only 2 teams that beat Tulane this year, went down into New Orleans and beat Tulane. He's really doing a great job. But when you look at Southern Miss, I think it's a couple things. One, when you started dissecting how the conference shift started happening in the 90s, Louisville went, to the Big East first, and then you had Memphis who left and went to a conference. And Southern Miss just did not fit that. Hattiesburg did not fit that television footprint that people started to look for. Because I can remember way back when people would say, well, wow, why did this conference pick Memphis up over Southern Miss? We all know it's about eyeballs. It's about the number, per capita of eyeballs. But so Southern Miss found itself having to, head into a Conference USA that was, maybe a nice conference, but not the best of conferences. We see how it's struggling today. Then the advent of teams like you said, UAB, South Alabama, Louisiana Monroe, the Sun Belt became extremely strong, which is Southern Miss, I'm sure, is glad to be a part of that now. And then there is no diamonds in the rough, really. I mean, you look at it now with the 247 sports and the on threes where everybody goes to camps. So you lose the diamonds in the rough. You are, you get other programs kind of coming to the top, so to speak, like your Troys and others. So other kids are starting to go other places. And then also Southern Miss loses that, or they don't get that bump from the big time money, like here in the state of Mississippi State and Ole Miss do from the SEC annually. So State and Ole Miss have kind of gone off and left Southern Miss financially, and in facilities wise and other things. But you got to give Will Hall credit. But I think it's just a collective run, if that makes sense, to kind of come all the way back to your point. It's a lot of different variables there. But Southern Miss, again, I think they're on sound footing with Will Hall.
Yeah, and we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. I want to get into some more of the other sports. But I just can remember how they did. They would find the players, so many of them over the years that just weren't noticed. But you're right. You've got everywhere with social media. If a kid runs fast in 10th grade, it's on Twitter. It's somewhere. Some coach is going to hear about it. And I'll tell you, the way they found Herschel Walker will crack you up. We're going to talk about finding diamonds in the rough and more with Jake Wimberly right after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we got a lot of listeners out there, folks like Rich Johnson over in Atlanta. Yes, sir. He's listening to the show, and I think he echoes what a lot of people are wanting to know about, and that is baseball. You look at the state of Mississippi. It was funny last year on the show, we talked so much about what are the odds of Ole Miss following up what Mississippi State did the year before, and damn, they did it. And all while, Mike Bianco was being fitted for his coffin. The flowers had been ordered and his burial suit had been picked out at Hinton on the square there in Oxford. It went it all. And they did it when they went to Hattiesburg and beat a pretty darn good Southern Miss baseball team. You got baseball, from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the top of northern Mississippi, DeSoto County, and guys like Austin Riley, who played at DeSoto Central, now a star with the Braves. It is amazing. Less than 3 million people. And I think Ole Miss and their recruiting class, out of the 15 they signed, which is one of the top in the country, 12 are from Mississippi. Let's talk about baseball and its future in the Magnolia State.
Look, baseball, and you guys know this. You can go across different states to, Texas, Louisiana, into Florida, up into the Carolinas. You're going to find really, really good baseball, high school baseball, competitive baseball. We know how competitive tournament baseball is, select baseball around the country. But the state of Mississippi is on a heck of a run. And look, you can kind of go around any park around Mississippi. Tournament ball, like a lot of places, about to kick off here in the state of Mississippi in about a month. But when you look at the state of Mississippi and what, Mississippi State obviously has been able to do over a number of decades with Ron Polk and the way they kind of built that animal in Starkville, back when it was just LSU and Mississippi State kind of being king of the castles in the SEC. But you fast forward to today and what Ole Miss has been able to do. I don't think Robert, that I would have ever thought State and Ole Miss both would have won national titles in baseball, much less back-to-back. Southern Miss, a really good baseball program. You look at what Delta State has been able to do over a number of years. And now you look at what Jackson State is doing at Jackson.
Exactly.
They're doing a great job in the SWAC. They have, punched tickets to the NCAA tournament before. So you get into, and even other smaller schools, Millsaps College here in Jackson. You get down into the junior college ranks. There's some really great talent too. So it is a really, really hotbed for baseball talent. We've got some of the best high school baseball, I think you could say pound for pound in the country. Just here in the metro area, Northwest Franklin High School, Madison Central, Brandon High School, all have ranked inside the top 10 at various points in times on max preps in the country. So I think it starts with the feeder programs and how popular the sport is in the state. It's an extremely popular sport. And then you look at the way the high school programs are run, really good high school coaches. You've got, right now, the number one player class of 2024, Kevin Griffin's son here, who is the head softball coach for Belhaven, his son, who just committed to LSU. They're going to have to make a decision. Are they going to forego college and, head into the Major League Baseball draft? So he plays right here at Jackson Prep, a part of the MAIS. So it's, top to bottom, inside out. If you got a young man that's going to play baseball in this state, he's got to be wired differently because it is a different sport here.
Yeah, it is. And you talk so much about NIL, and I think we're starting to see what I predict will happen with NIL. I think it's going to fall apart. But college baseball, we had Yancey Porter on yesterday, Rebel Yell Hotline, talked about its incredible popularity, not just in Mississippi, but it's growing all over the Southeastern Conference and around the country. It's because people are getting turned off by these ridiculous NIL deals with football and basketball. And, it's not about talent alone. You can have $1 million worth of ability, but if you got $1.98 worth of brain, heart, and desire, that's a bad combination. Kentucky basketball comes to mind when I think about that. You remember last year when they lost to St. Peter's in the tournament. The coach for St. Peter's, his salary was right at $200,000 a year. Kentucky had 8 players on their basketball team who had NIL deals worth in excess of $200,000. I remember Oscar Sheboy and one other Kentucky player visibly upset after the loss. The rest of them were over there on their laptops and iPads and Game Boys or whatever they call those game video things. They didn't care. We better be very careful with that, Jake. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Look, you can't buy your way into a championship. I mean, I can remember back even in the National Football League, Don Shula in the late 90s was trying to reboot one more time around Dan Marino, and they went in and traded out, and they ended, I can't remember how many guys it was. It was double handfuls of former number one draft picks. They were essentially trying to, free agent their way into a Super Bowl. They went 8-8. It's very tough to do. If you don't believe it, just look at what's going on down at Texas A&M, and we know it's way more of a complex situation than that. But you got to be really careful, and I think these coaches understand this. These administrations understand this, is that there's got to be, yes, we want the players to make money, but they also have to have a sense of wanting to be there. And, when you get young men and women that their only motivation is money, then 9 times out of 10, it's just not going to work. It's just like any other job. Do you want a paycheck or do you want a job? And, I think, again, you and I have talked about this before, about teaching responsibility and work ethic. And you're right. You can't just buy your way to a championship.
No, you can't. And I think Nick Saban, I'm sure you're aware of what happened here recently with his comments about NIL with one of their current players. Hey, we're going to need this much to stay. Can you do it? And they wanted other things, and see you later. I'm glad. I mean, he's got the number 1 recruiting class in the country. Okay. So it's not like Alabama isn't getting players. But I'll say this. You look around at the teams in the NCAA basketball tournament, Jake, the groups that have been together for 4 or 5 years, they do really well. And you're going to see more of that. And again, look at Kentucky right now. They're not even ranked. I don't know how good the SEC is in basketball, but if you're old school and you use as your 30-year bellwether bond, like the Treasury, for interest rates, if you use Kentucky as a barometer to measure the strength or weakness of the SEC in basketball, you're missing the boat now. Because you can thank Mike Slive back in 2013, 2014. He knew the SEC network was going to be launched August of 2014. And the memo was sent, and it was heard around the SEC. Ramp up your basketball programs. You better start investing in it, because we cannot charge Ruth's Chris Steakhouse prices and put CK's Steakhouse steaks on the table. Basketball matters now, and fan bases in the SEC are getting really mad when they lose in basketball like they do in football. Places like Auburn, Alabama, and even Georgia is improved this year, and they've had the least commitment to winning in basketball of any school in the SEC in the recent last 5 or 10 years. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's an extremely competitive sport. You're right. And the fan bases are extremely passionate about their programs. You see it, like you referenced, Auburn and what's going on at Tennessee, Alabama this year. But, this commitment to win, this kind of turn door mentality that a lot of basketball players have. I think that's why when you get to the NCAA tournament, you see a lot of these upsets of programs that come in and maybe they have 3-4 guys that have been in the program 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, rarely do we see teams that have, rosters that are filled with guys that have been there 3 and 4 years in basketball anymore. Yeah. So, but it is an extremely competitive sport in the SEC. And look, the SEC has done a great job. And like you said, it is no longer just Kentucky and everybody else in the conference.
Yeah. And basketball, you have 13 on scholarship. You're lucky if you have 10 or 11, because if a guy's any good and he thinks he should be starting, they're going to leave. But you know what, Jake? Bo Carter reminded me of this on the show a couple of weeks ago. Back in the 30s and 40s, how common it was for football players to transfer. They would leave mid-season, TCU to Texas A&M. We always think that what we're experiencing is the first time ever. It's the worst it's ever been. It's just not true. We have seen cycles. We've seen things happen in college athletics that we thought were going to put an end to the great party, to stop the presses. We always work our way through it. I'm seeing it right. The Jaden Rashada quarterback deal with Florida. Florida called his bluff. $13.6 million. That's what he and his people wanted. This is another thing. You're a 17, 18-year-old kid. I don't need to deal with your people. This is ridiculous. But they gave him a month to try to counter that. He didn't get any offers like that. That's why he'll probably end up at Washington or Arizona State or Arizona. We need more of these crash and burns. I despise the NIL. You know that. You got to use it. You got to use it. But how many times can you keep going back? We just got a few minutes left, to your fans, to your donors, and say, well, give to regular fundraising for academics, then to athletics for facilities and all that. And now you got to give to NIL. Again, I ask this question. Are you giving more to NIL than you are to your charities or to your own children?
No, that's a great point. And again, like you said, it's something the market will work itself out. You can't, it's a very fine line to ask people to, you're a graduate of a university and you're in a business school or an engineering school or a school of medicine, and to, donate to those schools for those scholarship programs to keep those things afloat. Then you donate to your athletic department for tickets, and then club level and whatever, how you want to position that yourself on game days. And then, oh, by the way, you got to do NIL. So it is a very interesting time that we're living in. And like you said, something's going to give on this, and the market will set itself.
Yeah, it is great. But look, man, I tell you, Mississippi, top to bottom, like very few people do. And Jake, tell people how they can follow you and all the great work you're doing every day and on social media, and look forward to having you back on next week. But again, we really appreciate you taking your time to join us on Sidelines.
Absolutely. Anytime. And I appreciate you guys. Just on Twitter at Jake Wim, and you can always stream us on the zone1059.com. That's ESPN 1059 WRKS. You can also find it on all the streaming platforms, iHeartRadio and more, 3 to 6 every day here in Jackson.
And you're talking all sports year round. That's what I love.
Everything. That's right. Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one, man.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right. John Hartwell is going to join us. And I got to tell you, Jake Wimberly, man, the Mississippi man. You combine him. We had Yancey Porter on yesterday. Another great one we have down in Mississippi, Brad Logan Media Network. Just some fantastic folks covering the Magnolia State. And I am seeing folks, and I love it when we talk with John Hartwell, to get inside the mind of an athletic director, all the business decisions that have to be made throughout every day, 24/7. It never stops. But Jake referenced the amount of money that's out there. You can look at the athletic budgets of schools now. Go back 15 or 20 years before this massive influx of money from TV, the SEC network and all was put in. When the SEC network came about, most schools back in 2014 invested about $5 million just on their media centers, their TV studios. You know, when you're watching SEC network and you see these live shots from, you pick the campus and their coach in whatever sport, they spent all that money. Hell, a lot of these schools' budgets used to be $40 million a year. Ole Miss, not that long ago, was $45 million. Same thing with Mississippi State. But I like what Jake said about Larry Templeton. What Larry Templeton did, I mean, he grew up living across the street from Davis Wade Stadium, Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. His father was an electrician that did most of the work there on campus. And Larry Templeton, 87 to 2007, was raising the big money, as Jake referenced, before it was being dumped in your lap by the SEC office on the annual distribution. They've always done an annual distribution, the revenue sharing. But what he did was he went out and got the money before anybody else was doing it. He served longer as the athletic director at Mississippi State, I believe, than any other AD in the 90-year history of the Southeastern Conference. Larry Templeton. He's worked with the SEC office. He's worked on rules and policy committees. That guy is a visionary. I saw him last year and introduced myself to him at the Auburn-Mississippi State game. And right after I did that, Mississippi State scored 40 unanswered points. It was rough. Can't wait to get Larry Templeton on the show, see what the stock market's way down. Maybe it'll come roaring back. But Larry Templeton is one of the reasons why Mississippi State University has the athletic program that they have. They're strong. I mean, and their baseball program, LSU has 6 national championships. Mississippi State has 1. They've been to the World Series 11 or 12 times. But really, Mississippi State put college baseball on the map. The left field lounge, the tailgaters out there, you just can't make this stuff up. What they did, truly amazing in terms of fan support, grassroots financial support, and it extends throughout the Mississippi State program. You look at that state, less than 3 million people, and what they do in Starkville is nothing short of amazing. So go check out their facilities. But look what they're doing at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, let's be honest, they were way behind what Mississippi State was doing. Now, Ole Miss had the tradition, 6 SEC championships under Johnny Vaught, 48 to 72 and 73. 3 national championships, 196 wins for the Vaught. And the Egg Bowl, by the way, has become one of the best college football bowl games that you'll see in the country. It's intense. It is fiercely competitive. And these fan bases do not like each other. The players don't seem to like each other. I don't know of another rivalry with so many fights. You'd have to go back to the old Florida State, Florida, or Florida State, Miami. And then now it's Miami and Florida Atlantic or Florida International or South Florida. These kids, they don't like each other. But the Egg Bowl is a fixture. Thanksgiving night. This past year, Mississippi State went in there, got the win. That was the last game of Mike Leach's career, of his life. They got that win. That was the first time he'd beaten Ole Miss in his 3 years in Starkville. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back talking with ULM's new AD, our friend, John Hartwell, right after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne broadcasting again on this Tuesday, college football, basketball, baseball roundtable to Sidelines. And sadly, folks, it's the last day of duck season. But as sad as that is, we do have the youth hunt coming up this weekend. That will be a lot of fun. Congratulations to Jack Greer. Shot a banded pintail sprig today at the Cherry Farm out there in the ice, in the freezing. It feels like it's about 16 degrees out there, but hardcore. MJ, Jack Greer, congratulations. Shooting a banded pintail is about as rare as having a great hockey team come out of Mississippi. They don't band a lot of them, okay? But as I look out there at what's going on in college athletics, and I say to myself, what is the future? What is the future and where are we going? I feel as optimistic as I ever have because, in the stock market, which I have a lot of experience as a financial advisor since 32 years and growing, it's always darkest before dawn. It is so dadgum easy for people to throw in the towel and just give up every time something doesn't go their way. And I see a lot of that out there with people. Well, there's nothing you can do about NIL. The genie's out of the bottle. It's just the way it is. You can't do anything about it. It's going to ruin college athletics. What a bunch of babies. Man up. Pull your pants up. Grow a pair, man. Start fighting back. You're going to let 17, 18-year-old narcissists and their people drive the narrative? You can't do that. Who owns college football? Who owns college basketball? It's the fans. Now, I know NIL. I mean, I'm not a fan, but right now it's what we've got to do. But I think we all know this. I'm going to ask you to do this. Go ask your boss. for a ridiculous raise, especially for something you haven't done anything for. You've done nothing. Go ask them for a big raise and see what they say. Say you're making $80,000 a year and say, I want $600,000 for my same job. Watch their reaction. Okay. That's what NIL is. You've got, it is pay for play. Don't try to convince me otherwise, because you're just, hissing in the wind. I'm not going to buy it. That's what it is. That is what it is. And, I'll say this. You can't, it won't be sustainable. So you're starting to see Nick Saban push back. And trust me, folks, Nick Saban doesn't do anything without having a plan. Everything he does, he thinks through completely before he says it. He is telegraphing, he is virtue signaling where NIL is going. And you're going to start having people exposed for what they're doing. You've got families of student athletes now coming in and saying, our son or our daughter is being pursued by whichever school, and we're going to need this much to stay here or we're leaving. First off, trust but verify. How do you know that they're really being offered that kind of money? It's just like these football coaches that when they're struggling at their school or they want to raise, their agent will go out and say, well, he's rumored to be on the at the top of the list for the opening at this school or that school or whatever. Watch out. Call their bluff on it. You give these coaches these 7 and 10-year contracts. What you really need to do is say, okay, take that job. Take it. If you don't stand up and call people out when you are in the middle of negotiations, you're going to get burned. And once people know that they can get what they want out of you, hey, I got 2 boys, 2 girls. When your kids know, when my dad, when we were kids, he's a narcoleptic, okay? He would fall asleep every night talking to us. And I'd say, Dad, can I get a horse or can I get a cow? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Next morning at breakfast, I'd talk about that. And he'd go, what are you talking about? And it wasn't that he was drinking. He's narcoleptic. But I think we got to be careful, John Hartwell, and I love having you on here. Now I'm in the deer stand with American Sniper looking over my shoulder. I've got the AD at ULM, the Warhawks, and but we just had Jake Wimberly on from the Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi, John. And we were talking about what's going on in Mississippi and baseball, football, basketball. It's amazing budget sizes. What's happening, TV deals and all. Let's talk the business side of college athletics with you if you've got a few minutes. I know you're busy. First off, let's talk about your new job, what your plans are, and how people can support you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Rob. And yeah, I've been kind of a whirlwind literally last week, but official announcement yesterday. Yeah, so excited to move to Monroe and to get the privilege and honor of leading Warhawk athletics. And I'll officially get started here in the next couple of weeks, although I'm already doing things. And great opportunity at a great institution, Sun Belt Conference. And one of the things is, I've had some colleagues around the country and friends who said, hey, we didn't know you jumped back in that quick, or why that one. And really a week ago last night at Doe's Eat Place, downtown Monroe. And actually I went back there last night, took my family after the introductory press conference. But a week ago I was there with President Barry from ULM, and he's a native of close by Winsboro, Louisiana, and has been on campus for a while. Was the dean of the business school, passionate about ULM and Warhawk athletics, and he said, "Hey, we're committing from the university perspective to upgrading our athletics department. We know that we've been in the bottom quarter, if you will, of the Sun Belt Conference, and you have my commitment that we're investing in athletics, and that starts with you leading our program." And so I'm really excited about it. We talked a little bit last week. Terry Bowden is the football coach, and Coach Keith Richard, who was a legendary player at here at ULM, and so a lot of good pieces in place. We've just got to put a shoulder to it, and obviously there's a clear correlation, as you allude to the business side of college athletics. There's a clear correlation between investment in and success output. So we've got to grow the revenues, but I feel confident about that, both within the ULM family and the greater Monroe, West Monroe, Northeast Louisiana region. So excited to get started. Big day yesterday. It was interesting because Heather and I, my wife and I, took our girls down there to look at a couple of schools beforehand, and had the opportunity at Ouachita Christian School to get to visit for about 25 minutes with arguably one of the most famous alums of the institution, Stan Humphreys, who had a great career in the NFL. And he's coaching girls basketball at Ouachita Christian School now. Had a long conversation about it. He said, "Hey, I made my living in the NFL as a quarterback playing football," he said, "but my true love has been hoops." And, he's had a successful career kind of under the radar screen compared to a lot of former NFL players, but he's coaching girls basketball and loving life. So look forward to getting started. And again, appreciate the opportunity.
Oh yeah, and what's really neat, and I all the time, and you go down there and you look at their facilities. For people that don't know you, that are ULM people, or they're just listeners, and our numbers on our show are growing, and we're blessed because we have listeners that, and because we talk about sports. I like to say, Audrey said, we're their safe space from all the other crap out there. We don't talk about politics, we're talking about sports. But I'm going to tell you, those facilities at Troy, that didn't happen by accident. It took a lot of hard work. Let people know there, Utah State, your track record. Yeah, I mean, we've got opportunities, and I'm somebody who call me a glutton for punishment, call me whatever. I've taken opportunities that some others may shy away from because there are some challenges, but I look at those challenges as opportunities, and the opportunity to grow, to get better. And at the end of the day, it's about making positive impact on student athletes' lives. And, that's something that 40 years ago, as a high school athlete coming out of Mobile, I ended up going to the Citadel, and, the 4 years there as a student athlete, as a cadet, changed my life for the positive forever. I mean, there are valuable life lessons that I learned there that I utilize every day in my life, and not the least of which, hey, take the road less traveled. Sometimes it's an opportunity to make a difference. And at our press conference yesterday, I said, hey, our coaches, our administration, the entire university family, I want to remind them on a regular basis that none of us administrators or coaches have a job without the 360 student athletes that we service on a daily basis. And, that's the beginning, that's the end. And my job is to make sure that that they have the tools and resources necessary to be successful
first off in the classroom, secondly on the fields of competition, and ultimately, let them gain experiences and arm them with knowledge that's going to help them throughout their careers, whether it's a teacher, an attorney, a doctor, professional athlete. Hopefully we have a handful of those, but the stats tell you you're better off taking your meal money you get every week and going down to the corner convenience store and buying lottery tickets than you are banking on a career as a professional athlete. We love those that make it there. We love the Stan Humphreys of the world. But reality is that most of them are going to go on to a career in something else.
Yeah. Well, in the financial markets, and you and I both have experience there. I would call you a deep discount value money manager. Okay. Sir John Templeton out of Manchester, Tennessee, moved to Bermuda, for tax purposes, I think. But he used to say, and he the 1954, the Templeton Global Fund was the first international fund. He would say, don't tell me where things are going great, where it's easy. Tell me where it's a graphic example, where there's blood in the streets, where there's opportunities, and I think you love the challenge. And I love that about you, of going to an athletic program that needs help. They need investors. They need a plan. And your background in public accounting, working with E&Y, your discipline. I went to UMS in Mobile, University Military School. No picnic at the Citadel. That prepared you. And having a dad that said, son, when things get tough, life gets really tough, be a bulldog, fight on, kick ass. And that's what you've got. So I think the people at ULM have just picked up a deep discount value. It was like if you could buy Exxon just a few years ago when fuel prices and the price of oil went down to next to nothing, you could get Exxon for $28, $30 a share. And people, why would you want to buy it? Isn't it going to go lower? I said, let me ask you something. Anytime the market goes down 1,000 points, you drive down, let's say in Memphis, from Front Street on Poplar Avenue all the way to the Fayette County line, and have somebody in the car with you with a pen and paper and write down the name of every publicly traded company that has a business front along the Poplar corridor in Memphis. You pick the city. You think they're going to stop putting gas in their cars and trucks? You think they're going to quit going to Walgreens? You think they're going to quit going to Home Depot, Best Buy, Lowe's? You think they're going to quit going to McDonald's? I don't care how many times we're told McDonald's makes you fat. People love that stuff. Get in the way of the money, man. And you know what? 98% of the people, I worked on a fundraising campaign for Auburn, 06 to 08. 95% of the people that we asked to invest in Auburn, you know what they said? Oh, I thought this booster or that booster did it. They thought there were 2 or 3 people that wrote all the checks. And I said, let me tell you something. That's what you think, but here are the facts. It's a grassroots populist movement to grow an athletic department, isn't it? You got to get people and say, I've never been asked before. Hell yeah, I'll give. Greatest example of that. It's a friend of mine, graduated from Auburn, moved to Memphis in the mid or late 70s, got his MBA. 35 years later, the pledge card he got from the University of Memphis, and I told this to the former University of Memphis president on the show, Dr. David Rudd. They were still asking him for the $250. If they could count on that, he'd given them 35 years ago. He gave Auburn a $100,000 check. And Dr. Rudd said, would you please give me his name and cell phone number so I can call him back? But you know what I'm talking about, John. What's the favorite radio station of people with money? WIIFM. What's in it for me, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. And, you talk about athletics fundraising or any kind of philanthropic fundraising. The vast majority of the people that you're targeting have been successful in business, and back to your point about the stock market, have been successful in the stock market, and so you've got to approach them, from an athletic development standpoint along the same lines. Their return is not going to be a check in the mail or dividends or anything like that, like it is the stock market, but their dividends or their return are going to be a successful
John,
athletics program.
hold that thought. I want you to finish that. We got a few more minutes right after the break because people need to hear this, because when you speak, they damn well better be listening right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We are talking sporty with John Hartwell. But John, carry on. Let's go forward about the return when an investor or when a booster, a supporter, in this case of the University of Louisiana Monroe, member of the Sun Belt Conference, which I think is one of the best conferences in the country. We've been saying that long before I knew you, or I knew you were going to be the AD at ULM. Look what they do in sports. They are, that's a strong conference. I think they picked the right guy at just the right time. You're the tip of the spear.
Hey, I appreciate the compliment there, Rob. But yeah, we were talking about athletics, fundraising and development and approaching donors and how you do that. And again, we talked about the analogy to those who buy stocks, and a lot of them, if they're really smart, they'll go to a guru, an investment guru like yourself, to get that done. And very few you see are going to go open the Wall Street Journal, go to the New York Stock Exchange and go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I want this stock. I mean, that's just not how they do it. They're looking for a company with a sound business plan, one that has strong leadership. There's a vision for the future, and there's a history of success there. And so most donors are looking for the same thing, investing in an athletic department. And obviously, those that have an affinity, whether you're an alum or you're a local resident who follows that team, there's a whole affinity component there too. But they're going to invest in something they think where their return, as opposed to a dividend or a check coming, or your net value increasing, what they're looking for is a program that represents them with class. They win. Obviously, WIN is very important. The student athletes that represent that program conduct themselves in a proper manner, and they go on to success, whether it's in a career as a professional athlete or in another profession. So all of those things are really important. So I think it's really important you sell that vision to them. Hey, shifting gears for a minute, your analogy about the Sun Belt, I think you are spot on there. And that's part of the thing that excites me the most. Really, when you look at the group of 5 leagues, which you've got the American Athletic Conference, the Mid-American Athletic Conference, Conference USA, the Sun Belt, and the Mountain West Conference. Really, in my opinion, the Sun Belt is poised to establish themselves much like the American Athletic Conference did 6 or 8 years ago as the premier group of 5 league. And I'm saying that not just because, I'm a new athletic director in that league, or I was an athletic director in that league 8 years ago. Here's kind of the methodology to that. So you've got, in the American Athletic, you've got Cincinnati, Houston, and the University of Central Florida who are departing, going to the Big 12. In the Mountain West, the league that I just came from, you've got San Diego State with half a foot out the door, just waiting on that invite from the Pac-12, which I think could come at any time. And they've been, that's not a secret. They've been very vocal about that. And I think if that happens, and I do think it will happen with San Diego State, you're going to have 2 or 3 others in that league who are going to try to follow suit, whether it's UNLV, Boise, any of those. And so I think those things in those leagues that are, potentially threatening membership, along with the success that the Sun Belt Conference has had on the fields of play, particularly in football, along with their new members, James Madison, Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and Marshall, I think the Sun Belt Conference is poised to be arguably the best Group of 5 league in the country going forward.
Yeah, I do too, John. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. We got Johnny Ballpark Franks on with us now. We're going to talk with him out of Nashville, but let's do this again. Hopefully you can be back on with us for the AD angle with Matt Dean Thursday. But I love your vision. Without a vision, without a plan, it won't happen. And it's going to be fun watching this happen, because having you at your experience level at ULM, they have not had someone like you before. But tell people real quick how they can follow you at ULM.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website, ulmwarhawks.com. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm a pretty active Twitter user, so you'll see a lot of what's happening in ULM athletics at John_.Hartwell on Twitter. And again, appreciate the opportunity to visit with you guys. Johnny, hope you're doing well. Hey, still here in Southern Arkansas right now. We're right on that borderline of some pretty significant ice. I'm sure y'all are looking at the same thing in Memphis and on over to Nashville as well.
Oh yeah, we got it big time. I'm looking out the windows here, and there's ice everywhere. And it's going to be weird. We got it last night, all night. We're going to get it again this afternoon, again tomorrow, Wednesday, and again Thursday. It's unbelievable. So a lot of it coming. But, man, listen, it's going to be fun. And let's do this again Thursday. I love what's going on down there, and having you at the tip of the spear makes it even more fun. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Okay, Johnny Ballpark Franks, man, I tell you one thing. The way I look at it with the big picture of college athletics, having, John Hartwell's the new AD at ULM, and from being at Tennessee State, people talk about small conferences or small schools. If you get the right people in there, anything can happen, and things are changing so fast in college athletics. I think that's never been truer, is it?
Oh, I totally agree. And look, that whole misconcept about small schools, it doesn't mean that you still can't make big things happen. Now, name, image, and likeness is certainly changing the landscape, even with major programs. I mean, you're going to see a big difference between the haves and the have-nots. And these are really tough waters that everybody's having to navigate, whether you're an athletic administrator or a coach inside the SEC or in the Sun Belt or wherever we're talking about. And it's one of these things where you can't just slowly walk yourself through it. You have to jump in the deep end and make it happen. Otherwise, you are going to be left behind.
Well, the money that's out there now, that's what's amazing to me. That go back 15 or 20 years, and we talked with Jake Wimberly in the first section from 105.9 The Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi, about that. 40 million, 45 million 20 years ago. That was the budget for Ole Miss or Mississippi State. Now they're getting 60 million, and it's going to be soon 75 or 80 or more million a year just from the SEC office, not to mention all their own revenue generating for athletics.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are, I don't really necessarily have a optimistic look about what college football is going to look like in the next 10 years. I really don't. I'm just going to enjoy it one day at a time, 1 year at a time. And I hope for my love of college football that I am totally wrong. I don't think I am, unfortunately. And there was a time, remember, where the teams from the Ivy League were national powers, for example, in college football. And then they, in the 50s, they made that decision to back away, didn't want to compete as far as from the scholarship standpoint.
Yeah.
And they made that decision. And so, but if you go back to the original history of college football, your national champs were coming from Harvard or from Princeton, for example, and even Yale. But, I don't know what it looks like, honestly. I can just say in so many ways, I'm glad I'm not in college athletic administration. It was tough enough back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Now, when you add all these different layers, yeah, good luck with that. I'm glad I'm on this side talking about it instead of inside those rooms day in and day out, trying to navigate those waters.
You know what, Johnny, you just referenced, go back to November 6th, 1869, which is Rutgers 6, Princeton 4. College football began. There were 25 players on each side of the roster. Offense, defense, 50 players on the field. And really, college football caught on in 1892 in the Deep South with that February 20th, 1892, Piedmont Park, Auburn 10, Georgia nothing game. But Kentucky had football before anybody in the South. And I guess what I'm saying is it was really fun to watch what we call the modern era of college football, because until the early 1950s, most coaches in the Southeastern Conference in the South had that Ivy League pedigree or Notre Dame, didn't they?
Oh, and here's the other thing too, just to show you how name, image, and likeness has changed things. When we start examining like Jeremy Pruitt's situation, the fact that the University of Tennessee investigated him. They wanted him out so badly, they investigated him to the point where they just had enough evidence to get rid of him, and they were looking to make sure they didn't have to pay him as well. Now with name, image, and likeness, I personally want to go back, and what I hate, like when I start going down that road of college football history, it's really infuriating for me when, although money was paid for tickets and for concession stand food and drinks, to see outcomes of ball games, only to see games as far as wins vacated. It's like, find a different way. I proposed on my show yesterday that I wish we could go back and allow these schools the opportunity. I go back to when Florida State lost some wins because of student athletes happened to be in a room, as far as being a class taught by a grad assistant teacher, where throwing out the answers for an open book test. And it was like art appreciation or something. And wins were vacated. Or the textbooks situation at Tuscaloosa in 2007. Yeah. I would love for these schools to have the opportunity to buy back those wins, but not just do it, just throw money to the NCAA, put the money into scholarships and for the general student population, not student athletes. And I would love for that to happen, because now with name, image, and likeness, some of these things that schools got penalized for doesn't make any sense at all. Reggie Bush, give him his Heisman Trophy back even.
Yeah. It's silly. I mean, but that's an argument. I guess you'll get a lot of differing opinions on it. But it wasn't legal then, but it's legal now. That's a hard one. I mean, because
but here's the problem, and this is why this is why college athletics is in such a mess right now, is that these administrators, these coaches, everybody was aware of the problem, the elephant, quote unquote, in the room, where your poor students on campus were your student athletes. They couldn't even afford to take their date out for a pizza, and they'll be walking by the student union and seeing jerseys representing themselves being sold to make money for the school. And yet these student athletes and the NCAA and everybody just, was like digging into the sand, not making any moves, saying, oh yeah, it's a problem, but that was about it. And then bam, the government got involved and took the decision making out of the hands of these administrators who, for not just a couple of years or 5 years or 10 years, for decades, understanding it was a problem and did nothing about it.
Yeah. If you play kick the can, eventually you're going to have to pick the can up and deal with it. And that's what they did. No leadership. And right now we've got a new head of the NCAA, former Massachusetts governor. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where the NCAA is going. This is the crazy part about it. They make all their money off. There are 91 NCAA championships. Okay. And there are, of those championships, oh, golly.
I think your dog said hallelujah on that one too, by the way.
Right. Yeah. And, football is the only one they don't make money off of. The NCAA basketball tournament generates close to $1 billion. And then,
well, you also know that. Look at the trophy that's handed out for the national championship for all the other sports. They all look the same except the one for college football.
That's right. And so you also have to think about College World Series. That's starting to generate more money. But college football, this is the crazy part about it. The 85 scholarships for the D1 schools count toward the men's. That's because of Title IX. It ought to be a separate island, just a separate entity, because basically it funds everything else at most every university in America. At a few places, some of the other sports make money, but got to think about that. Football and the NCAA, I'm beginning to wonder if every other sport will stay in the NCAA and college football will become its own deal with its own governing body.
You're going to have two. You're going to have college football divided into two different kind of things. You're going to have one where you have individuals like Rob Browne will be playing football to represent Auburn, yet he will not be a student athlete. In other words, he's not going to be a student. He's just going to be an athlete representing the school. And then you will have the actual true student athletes. So you're going to have two national championships, one for the ones that are, representing schools, and then you have the ones that are true student athletes. And I really do believe that is what we're looking at 10 to 15 years from now.
I hope not. I mean, but we used to joke about college football, looking like NASCAR drivers, wearing those jumpsuits with all the advertising patches all over them, driving the cars, Mountain Dew or whatever on them. That's NASCAR. But we were joking. I remember years ago, friends of mine, we still talk about it. What about the football uniforms? What if they've got patches, advertising, sponsor pack, patches all over? In college, it's all about the brand. And where you're going to lose fans and they'll just throw their hands up and they'll boycott is when we get there. And I'm more optimistic, Johnny. I really believe that the fans are the free market, and they're already firing shots over the bow about NIL. The crash and burn with Jaden Rashada, the quarterback in Florida, a 4-star kid, 17 years old, is going to demand $13.6 million. Florida laughed at him. Somebody at Florida got over their skis, as Franz Beard said, of GatorBaitMedia.com. And there was pushback. And that kid will probably get a few $100,000 wherever he goes. We're going to talk more with Johnny Ballpark Franks on Sidelines right after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House Equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Ballpark Franks. This just got a text in here. Johnny is saying what I said many months ago. It's about sponsors now. Then it all comes crumbling down. When the walls come crumbling down, is college football as we know it today Humpty Dumpty? Johnny Ballpark Franks.
Here's the thing about that. I mean, it sounds like obviously the reference is broken, and can you put it back together again? It's the putting it back together with the way stars of the 70s and 80s saw college football. No. But the other part about that too is, I think fans would be really shocked to the extreme how many of these players that we looked up and enjoyed watching on Saturday afternoons and Saturday nights, how much money they made as far as with that, the money handshake. And, that's the reason why movies like the Program or Blue Chips were made, and showing all the illegal things being done as far as all the cash handouts. It was significant. It wasn't $5 or $10 or $100. Some players got paid thousands of dollars. Yeah. We just didn't know about it. And most of the times that we found out about it is because you had a player not make it at the next level as far as the NFL, and then wanted to try extortion or just was bitter because the people who gave the money, they're not going to want to talk about it. And usually the people who took the money don't want to talk about it unless one or two of these individuals, things went sour for them in their life after those transactions.
God, Eric Ramsey comes to mind. Wow. I saw that guy firsthand when I was in school at Auburn, the lowest of the lowlifes. And, he had a wife who was mad when he didn't make it in the NFL. And I know all about that story. And you talk about extortion, Donald Watkins. And I don't know. I mean, and maybe that was because Auburn had moved the game from Birmingham, December 2nd, 1989. The Iron Bowl was played at Auburn. But I remember a lot of the power brokers in Alabama told Auburn's power brokers, hell will freeze over before we ever come to that cow town and play this football game. And as one of Auburn's boosters said, and looked that man right in the eye and said, well, that'll be a shame. You'll have to forfeit the game. We'll miss playing you. It worked out, and Auburn started playing them there December 2nd, 1989. But
And that probably too cost Alabama a national championship because they were the number 2 team in the country. I wonder if that game would have played out differently at Legion Field instead of losing. I mean, there was no way Alabama was going to win that game at Auburn. There's just too much excitement, too much of an atmosphere. But remember, Alabama was undefeated, number 2 team in the country. Who knows how that story would have been rewritten if that game had been played at Legion Field. I'd rather, hear this, all this sounds so pessimistic. And I still love the stories like we're seeing what happened on Sunday with the Jalen Hurts, a guy that literally anybody who saw him said he had no business playing quarterback at Alabama. He didn't even start that USC game in 2016. He came in the middle of the second quarter, Alabama trailing USC 3-0. And then Alabama cruises to a 50-plus win against USC. And then he gave Alabama the lead with 2 minutes to go against Clemson in that national title game that year and then, of course, Clemson responded. Deshaun Watson responded, scoring that winning touchdown in the next to last play of the game. And then he gets benched the next year in the national title game at halftime. Did he walk away? No. He basically sat behind Tua in 2018, and then when Tua gets injured, he comes in and saves Alabama's season with the win, the come-from-behind win against Georgia, and then getting Alabama back to the national title. Then he transfers, and he leads Oklahoma to a college football playoff appearance. I love stories like that where so many times we see somebody mope and don't improve. He worked on the things that he needed to work on, and now here he is, one win away from being a Super Bowl champ. And a lot of it has to do with what he was able to do with the Eagles throughout this year. I love stories like that, facing adversity, overcoming those obstacles, and being in the situation that he finds himself in. That's why I'm inspired about sports. That's why I love football. And these are the kind of stories where you don't even have to be a football fan to appreciate the human interest part of that story.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm an optimist, man. You're wasting your time being negative. It takes a lot of effort to be positive, but to me, it's natural. And I will say this about Jalen Hurts. People were lining up, and they still are, to say what he can't do, just like they did with Stetson Bennett. Okay, I know he got in trouble the other day. He'll deal with that. But Jalen Hurts, his throwing motion, he can't throw, he can't do this, he can't do that. Well, he's got his team in the Super Bowl. Again, people are lazy for the most part, and they have a vision, they have a narrative that they follow. Well, Jalen Hurts doesn't fit that narrative to be a great quarterback or to be an NFL quarterback. Well, he should be player of the year in the NFL, honestly. And the Eagles, 35-7 or 31-7, they stomped the 49ers, who were, they're a really good team. I think I hope the Eagles win. Nothing against the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. I just want to do it for all the people that think and have a narrative about guys like Jalen Hurts. You talk about a winner. I still consider him an Alabama guy. Again, he could have had a pout face, but he didn't, and he helped his team get that win in the SEC championship in 2018. He had every reason in the world to quit, Johnny, and those, again, are the stories, human interest, whatever you want to call them, that make us love college football. And I'm as optimistic as I've ever been. We're going to work this thing out. I don't know if, I hope, God, I hope we don't have, Wonder Bread stickers and patches all over the uniforms of our schools and, Reese's Pieces, which I love all these things, but let's keep the uniforms and the jerseys, like they are. You don't see Auburn and Alabama ever experimenting with their jerseys.
Rob, the thing that's really frustrating about this, if you see how proactive in so many other areas that these administrators and these conferences have been, to see them drop the ball this badly, I mean, it would be like, I don't know. It'd be like somebody who's had 30 touchdown passes and no interceptions, and then when it's time to perform on the big stage, no touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. I mean, for them to mishandle this issue, knowing that these are these athletes are your college football teams. These are your assets. It's just like corporations always, thinking about trickle-down effect and all of that and giving the nice parachutes for their CEOs and ignoring the individuals that got them to the point where they are in the first place, the workers. Well, the same thing applies in this situation. And it wasn't like they were asking what some of these athletes are asking for now under name, image, and likeness. They're saying, thanks, but you can take your ball and leave. They were just asking for minimal kind of things these issues were just ignored for decades. And that's the most ridiculous part about all of this is the fact they did nothing and expecting the problem was going to go away. Well, we saw how this happened a year and a half ago.
Well, exactly right. Remember the big talk, the conversation for several years was the cost of attendance money, and it differed from school to school. Mm-hmm. They should have solved that and made it just across the board. Look, the NCAA in 1994 got rid of athletic dorms because they said it was an unfair recruiting advantage. And so what the schools do now is they build these massive dorms, and as long as they're not 51% student athletes living in there, they're not considered to be an athletic dorm. That's how you get around that. What they need to do is, and I think what would work, I wouldn't have a problem as much as I do with NIL. If it was age-banded trust and incentive-based trust, just defer it. But you're going to upset the locker room and blow the chemistry up if you've got one guy making $3 million and then the people that are blocking for him are getting, pancakes or gift certificates to CK's Steakhouse or free oil changes. That ain't going to work. And then that guy is going to be getting hounded all the time. Hey, man, when are we going out for steaks? Or when are you going to buy me a Rolex or whatever? That's we had no leadership. They played kick the can, and look what they got.
Think about it, how pompous Vanderbilt was, for example, where they even did away with an athletics director position. Yes. They wanted the student athletes to be normal students. Well, here's a news flash for you. And for the school that's supposed to be the smartest school, not only in the SEC, but one of the smartest schools in the country, I mean, how stupid are you as far as common sense to realize student athletes aren't like any other student? They're different. When they fail on a basketball court or a football field, everybody knows about it nationally now, especially if you're playing in a Power 5 conference, for example. And so that's stupidity. Tell me how that worked out. Student athletes are different. They are special. They are technically employees of a university. Yes, they're working towards their degrees, but at the same time, I mean, if they fell on a Saturday afternoon, if you fell in your classroom and fail your chemistry test, are you going to get hundreds of thousands of hate tweets and bad Facebook posts, and then you go to these message boards and getting all the hate and death threats? I don't think so. So stop with the common sense stupidity. I mean, this is the biggest problem. And I will always say this. Some of the dumbest people I've ever been around in my entire life are the smartest people in the country, meaning like presidents of universities. They may be smart as far as book sense, as far as their brains, but they lack so much as far as street smarts and common sense. And that is the individuals that are driving this train.
Yeah. They're like one of the most purebred dogs in history is the Irish setter. They're also one of the dogs hit most often by cars. Okay. I mean, the royal family, they're one Y chromosome away from total insanity. Think about that.
Well, here's the thing. I used to get spanked when I was 4 years old with a wet washcloth. And you know why? Because I would be playing in the street. And even at 4, I realized, and even I still have vivid memories of this, not only the running away from my mom because she couldn't catch me, but secondly, knowing when a car was coming, I'm not dumb enough to stand there, allow a car to hit me. I'm getting out of the way. Even at 4, I know what the car could do to me if I just stand there.
Absolutely. Johnny, look, I know you said that you've got a meeting you've got to get to. You're welcome to stay. We got Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report coming on with us, but great conversation. You can't get this anywhere else. I mean, you get smart people like the man from the smartest city in Alabama, Huntsville. So let people know how they can follow you, the great work you're doing, and when is the Heisman Vault going to open up with a cigar room included?
We are working on that. I will keep you posted when I have all these interviews in one place. Hey, can we get Mark to sing a Rocky Top before we leave as well? No, I won't let you do it. I actually once asked the former Jeremy Sprinkles, the tight end for Arkansas, when I was at SEC Media Days. I was just joking, but I wanted him to call the Hawks. And I thought he was going to say, no, he actually did it. So that if you pause just long enough, who knows? So maybe Mark will sing Rocky Top for us. But you can keep up.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, go ahead. I was going to say Mark is in Athens today visiting his daughter who grew up in Knoxville, who's a freshman at Georgia. He's in a world of hurt.
We can get a duet. Hey, we can get a duet there.
Sing Rocky Top for us, Mark, anytime you want.
Yeah, right. Only Peyton Manning can do that. Actually, the last non-ball I know to sing Rocky Top were some Auburn fans came to my tailgate, and they sing Rocky Top for ribs. So,
yeah,
I like that. The best thing to do is just keep up with me on Twitter at BP Frank Show. My weekly show format now is every Monday from 5 to 7 Central Time, and like this time of year, I have Super Bowl winners. Yesterday I had Charlie Hanna on, he was the individual, one of the blocking experts there that helped Marcus Allen to his 191 yards in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But you can follow me on Facebook as well, Johnny Ballpark Franks, and I hope you both have a great rest of the week.
Hey, Johnny, same to you. Look forward to having you on next week, as always. That is the man, Johnny.
Thank you so much.
Franks. You bet. Mark Hamm, you're in Athens celebrating back-to-back national champions down there at Georgia.
I'm not celebrating. I'm here.
No,
but celebrating.
They are. Yes, your daughter and the folks in Athens are. But
yes,
let's talk some Tennessee Volunteers. 11-2. You win the Orange Bowl, 28-14 over Clemson. You got Joe Milton III coming back. I think Josh Heupel's going to earn that new $9 million a year contract salary. This guy has a cannon for an arm. Can he get him to throw the short and intermediate pass like Hendon Hooker could do it all? You think it'll happen?
Yeah, I think so. I think you saw a little bit of that during the Clemson game. If you noticed, he has a rocket of an arm, but, a couple of those passes in the end zone, he had to rocket. But then also, he was able to lead the receivers. And I think that's one of the things they've been working on. I mean, they said he can throw it on a rope, 60 yards. The problem is a receiver, if it's not exactly there, the receiver doesn't have time to get to it. So I think they've been working on putting a little more air under the ball so the receiver can make a play. And I think I think you saw a little bit of that during the Clemson game.
Yeah. He's the guy who, again, started at Michigan, and then he started at Tennessee, and then Hendon Hooker took over. But Josh Heupel separates himself from the pack like Lane Kiffin, like Mike Leach did, as an elite quarterback coach. He's also a program builder on a par with some of the top guys. Year 2 at Tennessee, he took a program lacking confidence, reeling from all the allegations with Jeremy Pruitt. And I think he's going to be back in coaching at Alabama or somewhere soon, and fixed it that fast. Amazing coaching job.
Yeah. I mean, here's the guy that came in, and, we've always talked about the number of people we lost in the portal. So, his first year, we should have won that bowl game. And, what a great turnaround he had. And then this past year was pretty phenomenal. So, he's taken some guys that maybe weren't 5 stars and 4 stars like you have at, Alabama and Georgia. And, he's made these guys, turn into some, 5-star prospects, at this point to go to the NFL. So I think his system works. I hope nobody figures it out. But I think as long as you have a good quarterback, and he was a quarterback. I mean, he was a Heisman runner, for a while as a quarterback. So, I think he gets it. He gets it out there. It's almost like he's in the mind of the quarterback.
Yeah. Hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I want to get back into it because he won a national championship himself. He knows what it takes. More after this.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959, right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, back with Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, broadcasting from his remote location deep in the heart of enemy territory, home of the defending back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs. And you know what? Tennessee this year, I think, presents the biggest challenge on Georgia's schedule. They don't have a really tough schedule this year. You would think that a trip to Auburn would be challenging, but Auburn's going to struggle this year, most likely. Hugh Freeze is bringing in talent and all, but really, and personally, as an Auburn man, I hope Auburn wins every game, and I expect them to, but it's going to be a tough challenge. But Tennessee is the threat, along with South Carolina. But even though South Carolina drilled Tennessee 63-38, that game in Knoxville this year, Mark, you better get your briskets ready now, because that's going to be probably the top game in the nation on that Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we got Georgia here, obviously, and hopefully our boy Roman Harper will be here, and we'll be able to feed him some briskets, and he'll come out of the tailgate and hang out with us. But yeah, I think that's going to be a game. Now, you got to realize it's later in the season, right? I mean, it used to be early, and now it's like, in November. So, I hope we're both undefeated going in. Well, actually, I hope we're undefeated going in. I hope they've got a few losses going in. But you're right. Their schedule doesn't look too terribly bad. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, I think we're one of the toughest challenges. But, the thing about it is, every year I say this, but, we lost a lot of offense. I mean, we lost Hendon Hooker. We lost our two best receivers. So we've lost a lot on offense. I think Milton's going to come in and do a great job. And you saw that, if the Clemson win is a signature win, obviously, but it is a ball game, and they had some people that were out. But I think, we got some good receivers. We got Squirrel that's out there. We got, Keaton that's out there. You got Brew McCoy that's back. So I think we've got some pretty solid receivers. We got some of the transfer portal coming in. So I think if Milton can get it dialed in, I think the offense is going to continue to do pretty well.
Mark, what is it? The quarterback makes the receiver, or the receiver makes the quarterback. And you talked about the talented players. Cedric Tillman's gone and some other guys, but the ones coming back, Brew McCoy, he's a pretty special player. And the Josh Heupel system, whoever his offensive coordinator is, that offense is going to look like Josh Heupel wants it to.
Yeah.
He's going to have a quarterback. And you've also got Nico Lamaliva, the $1 million wonder NIL guy. I don't know. No, you don't know. Nobody knows how he's going to react under live fire in the SEC. But that quarterback room is going to be deep, and whoever's on that field, in my opinion, will be ready, because it starts at the top with Josh Heupel. He sets the tone, and they're just everywhere he goes, watch his quarterback play. Look what he was as a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a quarterback coach. I mean, he's a guy that, can take these quarterbacks and do amazing things with them. And I think it's because, of his schemes, and obviously he's been there. I mean, he was a Heisman runner-up. He won a national championship. So, if you notice him on the sideline, he doesn't really get fazed about a whole lot. I mean, he'll get mad every now and then, but it's almost like they move on to the next play. It's almost like our offense. It's hurry up. If you notice, we catch the ball, the receivers don't brag and show off and, flex and all that. They run to the referee, hand them the ball, they get lined up, they run another play. So, I think he's a guy I think he's a genius and a brilliant mind when it comes to offense. I hope this defense did figure it out. Georgia obviously figured it out against us, that game down here. It was raining. It was different. Look, Georgia's just stellar. I mean, they're a stellar team. But, again, you got a guy like Stetson Bennett that's won 2 national championships, and, he's out. And they got a guy that's coming in. I mean, I know he's another 5-star. It's going to be replacing him. But, again, without a lot of experience in the SEC, you never know, right? You never know how someone's going to react. And, and they went through a lot of quarterbacks before they decided on Stetson Bennett, if you think about it. So, who knows? I think that may be a question mark for them. I mean, even though they have so much talent, you just never know what's going to happen until the guy gets, on the field and goes live.
You don't, and that is for sure. Let's switch to basketball. Tennessee, that was a impressive win. Rick Barnes against his old school. He was at Texas for 17 years as their head coach. Tennessee wins 5th, 4th against number 10 Texas in Knoxville. For the most part, the Big 10, the Big 12 had the upper hand in that SEC Big 12 challenge. And I do think, I always going to say this with a disclaimer, historically, the ACC is the most traditional, rich, passionate basketball conference in America. I think this year, up to this point, it is the Big 12. That was a big win for Tennessee. What happened to Alabama? Who is the elite basketball team in the SEC? Is it Tennessee? Is it Alabama? Do we have 2 or do we have none?
Well, I mean, historically, it's been Kentucky, right? I don't know what's going on in Lexington right now, but
I'm talking
Tennessee.
just this year. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this year, I mean, Bama is doing great. Tennessee's doing pretty well. We've lost a few games, but I think when you look at some of the games we played, I mean, we've blown out a lot of people and we've done pretty well. I think it all comes down to the postseason. I mean, we've had a lot of good runs and a lot of good teams. I think the knock on Rick Barnes is, we get to the tournament, and there was an article actually in the Knoxville News Sentinel this week about, there's no waiting to the tournament to decide, if you're any good or not. I mean, you got to go in and win. So I think they have a chip on their shoulders this year. I think they know that there's been a lot of, early exits, out of the tournament, and I think they got a little different fire. But yeah, I mean, the way he recruits and the people that come in, I mean, he's a great coach and he's a great person.
Yeah. He is. And, you look at some of the other teams in the SEC. But Alabama got drilled 93-69 at Oklahoma. And again, I don't know the mindset of the SEC guys when they play this deal. It's in the middle of the season. You're in that SEC, mindset. You step out of the conference for a game, then you go back into the league. I look for Alabama to absolutely play with their hair on fire. And Tennessee too. Kentucky, historically, yeah, they're the elite program in the SEC, no doubt about it. Right now, they're struggling. They have more talent top to bottom on their roster than about any school in America. But I don't think they have a roster full of guys that care about one another and that truly are all in on the team part of it.
Yeah.
Blame that on NIL, one and dones, or whatever. Ironically, it's the most experienced team John Calipari's ever had. But you're right about Rick Barnes. A lot of talented players. What's the most heartbreaking loss? You go back to that Purdue game a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you're in the tournament and you have a lot of expectations, and you lose, I mean, that's tough. Anytime you go out early when you have a big seed, right? I mean, you expect to win. The thing about the tournament, though, is, you catch a team that's hot, and you always have these 8 seeds, 10 seeds that, make it, to, the Sweet 16 at times. So you just gotta be on a streak. And, even last year, our best, 3-point shooter, went cold. I mean, he just got cold. He couldn't hit anything. And when you go cold in a game like that, you just, it's a recipe for disaster because, there's so much excitement around it and people have a chip on the shoulder. But I think it'll be a little different this year. I mean, we lost to Kentucky. They came in here and beat us a couple of weeks ago, which was a little bit of a surprise. I think, everyone's saying we're going to blow them out by 20 or 30 and we end up getting beat. So that maybe opened some eyes for them to say, look, you can't take anybody lightly. And when you get to the tournament, I think that was a good loss for them to get ready for the tournament. So you can't take anybody lightly, when you go into these plays. It doesn't matter what they're playing. I mean, if somebody comes in and starts, hitting threes and they're on fire, it's, you got to keep up.
No, I agree with you. And there are no easy days off in this league. I mean, we've still got 9 games left. And this mid-season challenge with the Big 12, it's fun, but it's back to the grind of the SEC. And the other teams that are Texas A&M, they're the least, talented. They've got good players, but they're not the most fun team to watch. They're not really pleasing to the eyes, aesthetically pleasing on TV, but they've only got 1 conference loss. That was to Kentucky. So, it's a tough league, and it should make you better if the league is really as good as a lot of people think it is. I'm not sure. I think the SEC always has a lot of great athletes, but I don't believe this conference has as many great athletes / great basketball players as the ACC does.
Yeah.
Year in and year out. That's the difference. It shows up in the tournament.
Yeah, it does. And, ACC has historically been, a basketball conference, right? So, I agree. I mean, I think we dominate in football in the SEC, and I think they've always kind of dominated in basketball. And again, we got some teams that are up there with, Alabama and Tennessee and some others that are going to, Auburn, that are going to do real well in the tournament. But I think, there's a lot more parity now, if you look at that. I think football is a little different story. I think, we kind of dominate the SEC across the board, and if you look at the, some of the players in the NFL, I mean, those rosters, if you watched it over the weekend, are loaded with, SEC, former SEC players. I mean, they're just, it's like, you're playing, mini NFL when you play in the SEC.
Well, whatever sport it is, the SEC's always got the athletes, but there's a difference between a 6'7" guy that can run up and down the court and slam it, but he doesn't know how many timeouts you have left. I mean, the Fab Five, Chris Webber will never live that one down. And right. It doesn't matter what the sport is. You got to have high IQ for that sport and court awareness. I want to switch real quick now to baseball, because with Tennessee, this could be just an incredible year.
Yeah.
Last year, Tony Vitello, everybody loved to hate that guy, but he won a lot of games. And I think when they got into the tournament, Notre Dame came in and shut them down in Knoxville. That was going to either be a huge wake-up call, throwing cold water in your face while you're laying in bed. That'll wake you up in the morning. Or the team goes the other way and says, man, we couldn't have a better year than if that's, and they may not say it. They won't say it. But, there's two ways you handle that. What my feeling is, Tony Vitello is going to have Tennessee right back where they left off. Maybe not exactly, but as long as he's Tennessee's baseball coach, you've got to put them in the mix to win the College World Series. Although last year you would have thought how they were a can't-miss prospect. It all boils down to chemistry and, how your players react when things don't go their way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, he's got a lot of swagger, right? He's a young guy. He's a good-looking guy. So,
yeah.
And his team has a lot of swagger. They were wearing that, that Joe Namath, home run, daddy cat, daddy jacket. I mean, they had swag for everything they did,
Yeah.
And I think that pissed people off, right? Because it's a little arrogant. But the players were having fun with it. And, they were hitting a lot of home runs, obviously. So, yeah, I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call again for them as well when you get to, you're in Knoxville and you're expected to go on. And I don't know if they overlooked anyone, but it just shows you that when teams come in and, you're the underdog, you got to fight. You got to fight hard. And, sometimes, when you got as much talent as both these teams have, in baseball, you got to have some guys that can hit. I mean, it's going to be fun, though. I mean, they've made some changes to the stadium. They're adding on to it. I think eventually they're going to build something bigger. The great thing is it's a small stadium, so we get a lot of balls that get out of the park pretty quick. But we had a lot of guys that, that went to the MLB as well that signed. So, I think it really comes down to the SEC, comes down to pitching, right? I mean, you got to have some strong pitching. You got to be able to hit. But if you look at everybody, that really goes a long way, you got to have some really strong pitching, all the way through. So.
Yeah. Deep bullpen, and it's hard to get. And we had Butch Thompson on the show Saturday again. He's on with us every week up through College World Series. And it's interesting to hear his take. And he talks about, again, the pitching and keeping the guys healthy.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's a long season. Their practice has begun, the preseason practices, and baseball will start in February.
Yeah.
And, it's in less than 3 weeks. They'll be rocking and rolling. And that's when you'll see a lot of teams from up north come down and play the Southern cycle just to get ready. But we got a couple of minutes left, and I want to say, hey, man, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people with the expectation to get nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give. We live in the greatest country in the world, people. You get to hear programs like Sidelines with great guests 6 days a week. Sidelines.live, like Mark Hamm, Rocky Top, Tennessee Tailgate Report. Mark, you look at all the sports at Tennessee, and you think about, Danny White, your athletic director up there. Think about where Tennessee was when Jeremy Pruitt was fired and all that. Gut feeling in the last minute we have left. what's the NCAA going to do? Or are they going to do anything? Or is Tennessee going to get credit for time served because they fired all those people 2 years ago?
Yeah, a few things to unpack there, but I would say, yeah, I think
a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I think we did the right thing. I mean, we decreased our scholarships. We did some self probation. I understand the school gets the bad stigma of that when you hire the wrong coach, but it seems like a lot of that should probably travel with the coach, and I think that's starting to happen. Now I'm hearing Jeremy just bought a truck down in Alabama, and that he may be down in Tuscaloosa as the next defensive coordinator, which tells me if that's the case, then they're going to let him back in after what happened. Because I heard last night that somebody told me they were driving through Alabama and they went into McDonald's to get something, and they didn't have any bags left because they had given Jeremy had been in there and it was filling them with cash and sending and giving them out to all the players. But anyway, they had to walk out with their McDonald's Big Mac in their hand. But if they're going to allow him to come back and do that, my thing is maybe that's favorable for us, right? Maybe
I agree.
If he's going to be able to come back in and coach at a major school, then maybe they're going to, maybe slap us with a few other scholarships.
It's going to be fun to watch. Look, we have run out of time, unfortunately. And Mark, hey man, if you can join us again tomorrow, hour number 2, we're going to have Jackie Sherrill on 10 a.m. Eastern. Sidelines. Love to have you join us tomorrow. I think you'd love talking with the coach about what's going on in college athletics. A true visionary who 30 years ago, in 31, in the fall of 92, predicted where we are in college football. Till then, folks, have a great day. We are out of here.